Ohio State generally beats Indiana like a drum. The only time that didn't happen in recent memory was in the COVID year in 2020 when they had Michael Penix now at Washington at quarterback, and they had a great team. They had their best team in 50 years and were legitimately a top 10 team coming in to play Ohio State. It was 42-35 was the final score, though Ohio State had a huge lead in that game and then let them back into it in the second half. But beyond that, 2 years ago, it was raining in Bloomington. It was 54-7. Last year in Columbus in November, it was 56-14 for Ohio State. And, you can look at all these scores up and down. Ohio State usually beats these guys anywhere from 25 to 35 points. The 56 points that they scored last year is tied for the most that Ohio State's ever scored in a game against Indiana. I think, spread players want to know, is it going to be, they're going to cover the 30 or 31 or whatever it is, or they're not going to? And it's kind of a guessing game when you really think about it, because for Indiana, a guessing game more than it is if this game was played in week 7 and we had a body of work for Indiana, because Indiana has 48 newcomers on its roster, and that's like 36 freshmen and like 22 or 23 transfer portal players, some obscene number of first-year guys on the team. And I tried to do a two deep for Indiana since they regretfully, I don't know, whatever the snarky word for that would be, did not produce one. Ohio State's not going to produce one either. And I'm like, like the guy in Major League, who are these freaking guys? It's like, well, this guy's dead. As our friend Noon would
cross him off then.
The list. So, it's anybody's guess who's going to show up and play. They haven't named a quarterback between Taven Jackson, who's a Tennessee transfer, and Brendan Sorsby, who was on the team last year, but I don't think he played. Excuse me. And so there's a lot of that with this Indiana team that, guys that, maybe produced elsewhere, but, Linnell Carr is a defensive end from West Virginia, getting a lot of run. Andre Carter, a defensive end from Western Michigan, who's getting a lot of run. They got a linebacker from Stanford. I mean, they've got guys from all the conferences, probably all 10 Division I conferences are represented on this Indiana roster one way or the other. It's kind of crazy. But so, it's going to take a quarter probably to figure out who's doing what to who, and then try and take advantage of it the best way that you can. But again, as our friend Noon would like to say, nothing beats rock. And if Ohio State lines up and runs the football with Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams and makes it 2nd and 3 and 2nd and 4, then that's going to make life so much easier for Devin Brown and Kyle McCord to just pick and choose their spots and then soften them up and go downtown to Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka, who I'm going to put the over-under combined touchdowns for them 3.5. I'm going to call it 3.5. I think one will have 2, and the other one will either have 1 or 2. So there you go.
When it comes to Tom Allen, you know what they say about desperate times. So desperate measures, grab anyone that has a pulse out there that may be able to help us and save my job. After
one of our other favorite jokes is showing up at the Big Ten kickoff luncheon, making his 7th and final appearance at the Big Ten kickoff luncheon as Indiana coach Tom Allen. He led the Hoosiers to a top 10 season in 2020, but haven't won anything since. So, in the 2 years since. So.
Elio.
4-8 last year. I think he's got to get him to a bowl game to kind of quiet the critics. I think that would be non-conference. I know they're playing Indiana State, Louisville, which has Brom, who was a noted Indiana beater at Purdue, now as their coach. I don't know who their other game is, but they're going to have a tough one to try and get to. They're going to have to beat Rutgers, obviously, and find some wins somewhere along the way.
Do you think next year you're getting rid of divisions? Do you want a new guy to get to deal with that? No longer having to play Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan every year? You just go with a fresh start, like everything is new, everything is fresh, everything is upbeat. Does Tom Allen will he bring the energy and the enthusiasm to a fan base with all of this newness, or is it like yeah, some of this is new, but the rest is still Tom Allen, and it's still maybe like 8 or 9 wins over the last 3 years?
I think the contract situation will dictate that. He's up to almost $5 million a year. So, and that would have come right after the 2020 season. They probably gave him a 5 or 6 year extension after 2020 at $5 million a year. So if he's got 2 more years on that deal, they're going to have to pay him $10 million probably, or $8 million to walk away. If he's got 3 years on that deal, it'd be, north of $10 million to get him to leave. So does Indiana, I know they're all playing with Big Ten funny money now with this new Big Ten contract, but does Indiana, which, for whether you like it or not, I mean, they're one of the many Big Ten schools that you can just be accused of collecting the checks that Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State generate for them and not reinvesting completely in their football program. They finally found a coach that they wanted to invest in. I mean, Indiana paying their head football coach $5 million a year. Are you serious? But, he earned it with that 1 year. So I don't know. That would dictate it to me probably for them. I think he'll be there, I think, through next year, and then a decision would have to be made if it doesn't get any better.